Welcome to Dulles. We're a community of faith that embodies the love of Jesus for the good of our neighbor and renewal of our world. We're so glad you're listening.
I started a year ago or more this, what I'm calling long-form series, and I'm going to kind of do one of these messages at least once a year, maybe once or twice a year, and I called it In a World of Hurt. And man, are we in a world of hurt. And I'm speaking as a country, as kind of a society right now. And, you know, I have these moments, we all feel it, we all feel the division, we all sense it, we say it in various ways, like, oh, can we be any more divided? And then we kind of grow quiet for a couple of weeks, like, okay, we turn the news off, or we read less for a little while to kind of give ourselves a break. And then we jump back into society and conversation, and then we feel it again, the stress and man, we're so divided. And that happened to me here in the last couple of weeks. I think following the events in Minneapolis, just the heaviness. Somebody walked up to me last week during the chili cook-off and said, I cannot figure out your politics. And I love that. I love being a part of this church where I do not know our pastor's politics. And I said, man, that is such a compliment to our leadership here, because it takes a lot of work. It is not passivity for you to not know our politics. It is not us not caring about our country, believe me. We all care deeply about our country. It is a disciplined focus on something greater. The reality that we're about to spend 40 days praying about and praying for, that God's kingdom would come into our world as it is in heaven. That means your community. That means our city, where we live, that God's reality would be known here, and it would be so much more powerful than anything that a government could accomplish. So that's our focus. That's our discipline here. That's why you don't know our particular politics. We're focused. Yes, we vote, and yes, we care, and yes, we debate among close circles and friends about our country. But we care so much more about the reality that Jesus has made possible. About 10 years ago, it became clear to a lot of us that social media had evolved to comprise of this phenomenon where people, many people, millions of people could call out someone publicly on social media in a post or in a comment, just railing against them, against their belief, something they've done. And I remember being in conversations a decade ago, wow, it's fascinating that hardly any of these people would say that thing in a room face-to-face with the person that they're challenging. They would never have the audacity to actually in the same room say something like that. But social media had developed in a way where it provided this safety, like this digital boldness, this distance that allows me to challenge, allows us to challenge someone. And then I'm going to just quickly kind of through a timeline here, talk about the evolution of our society. We found ourselves, it's at some point 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, in what we called cancel culture. And thank goodness we all just became exhausted of that. Just everybody could potentially be canceled. Anybody could have been canceled. Abraham Lincoln's name was being taken off of schools, and George Washington's name. I mean, anybody was vulnerable to being canceled. Co-workers and employees and neighbors being called out for something they said or something, not illegal activity, just something they believed or the way they voted. And then just here in the last year, there were a couple of times where I said to a friend or in conversation, I don't think we can be more divided as a country without fracturing. And then just here in the last month, I felt like, wow, I think we're more divided. At least in some nuance, in some aspects, in some ways. And I mentioned this week to some of you that I saw a conservative, I'm going to say, I don't know, Monday or Tuesday, speak so harshly to a group of liberals. And it's not harsh. It wasn't like, I strongly disagree. I'm not talking about that kind of language. I'm going to define it in my terms as it was condemning language. And within 24 hours, I saw a liberal condemning a group of conservatives, all within about a 24-hour span. And what struck me, what was sort of this haunting realization is this is just so normal to us. We sort of accept it. We don't necessarily like it, but we accept. We live in this calling out in condemnation culture or society now. And so it led to this question. I actually heard John Ortberg in a podcast episode last month asked a version of this question, and it's just stuck with me. It has not left me since I heard it. He asked the question, does God condemn? Does God approach people with condemnation? And what is our belief about this? Do you believe God condemns the world? Does he posture himself toward the world or towards people to condemn people or certain people? Let's even just say certain people. And man, that got my heart and mind racing. That was just a new way to look at something that I've known to be true. It is growing more and more in my life and my heart the more I know Jesus. But the way John asked the question, just, how sometimes something just sticks and it won't let go. Romans chapter 8. The Apostle Paul is writing here, and chapter 8 may be the turning point, and some would say maybe even in New Testament theology, our understanding of God. Wow, you get to chapter 8, and Paul is just driving home the love of God. This deep love that is so hard for us to even describe or put into words. Therefore, and he's talking about those who choose to surrender their lives to Jesus. They bring the mess and the dreams of their entire life into Jesus. That's the context here. He's talking about those who give over or surrender. That's what lordship means. Give over control of their life to Jesus. Therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. And when Paul says no condemnation, there is none. Not about your past, not your present. There's nothing you can do in your future. This is a mind twister. When you are in Christ Jesus, when you place your faith in the work that he has done on the cross for you, there's nothing you can do in your future that would bring about any kind of condemnation from God. Now, what is condemnation? What does it mean to condemn? This is straight up dictionary here, okay? I mean, I actually put it in my own words at first in my notes, and I was like, you know what? I want to look at, like, what is technically the definition of to condemn? To publicly declare something as morally wrong, bad, or unacceptable. To formally declare someone guilty. In construction or zoning language, it's to officially declare that a building is slated for destruction, is unfixable, or should be considered for demolition. There's no hope. This person, this structure is beyond repair. So it's condemned. It is tagged or labeled as condemned. God never will ever, he will never look at you, define you as condemned when we understand and accept what Jesus has done. He took the condemning. He took the condemnation on him. If we look at verse 3, it's wild what God has done for us. N.T. Wright, my favorite Bible scholar today, he teaches at Oxford, and at St. Andrews in Scotland. Just brilliant, brilliant mind about the New Testament. He talks about how God's not condemning because of Jesus is the major part of God's rescue mission, his rescue operation, where Jesus lured the dark power of sin into one place, himself. Everything that is condemnable, Jesus lured it all into himself and went to the cross with it. So Paul says in verse 3, God sent his own son in the likeness of sinful flesh to be a sin offering. And so he condemned sin in the flesh. God condemned your brokenness, your selfishness, your pride, that ugly, ugly, ugly thing you hope no one ever knows from your past. God condemned all of your ugly, all of your less than God's glory in Jesus on the cross. So he doesn't condemn you anymore. There is no more condemning of you when you accept. It's not this religious step, well, now I need to become a Christian to try to get God's favor and hope to go to heaven. It's the understanding that Jesus has been condemned for me. That once you believe that, once that connects in your spirit and you say, yes, that's believing in Jesus. It's not this religious duty, it's the freedom. Someone was condemned for me. So here's the paradox that leads us to where I think we are as a society today. The good news, which is remarkable, in fact, the Gospels are named actually literally good news. The declaration of what Jesus has done is gospel, or good news in English. This is remarkable news, and yet it's also this grave problem for us. Because the final judgment for your sin and my sin has already taken place. Your condemning has already taken place in history. So in your future, you will not be condemned. Because of this, some of us warp this into, well, I'm above it all now. I'm free. And yes, you're free, but I'm free to look at others with judgment because I'm above judgment. This is what we do. We'll even warp the grace of God. We'll take the grace of God for my brokenness and your sin and ugly, and somehow in our minds, and we can call it self-righteousness, we can call it pride, we can warp the grace of God into this state or status of, I can't be condemned, but boy, is that ugly. And man, should that be called out. How in the world do we do that? How do we take this experience of, man, I have not been a husband this week that I should be to my wife, or boy, what came out of my mouth, how ugly were those words? Jesus even talks about our thoughts that do not honor him, that are lower than his glory, than his standard. How can we be guilty of being less than what God designed you and me to be, and then somehow look out at society and call someone out or justify judgment against someone? Not just for what they believe, but for what they've done. What gives us, where in our thinking about God, our theology, do we say, I have the right to call this person out and condemn them because of what they've done? It is not in the New Testament. This is not part of the construct of God's new kingdom that Jesus has brought. It isn't. And if your politics allows you to override the New Testament, you need to take advantage of these 40 days of prayer that we're going to be devoting ourselves to. I'm not thinking of a single person when I say that. I really applaud this community that we call Dulles Church. I just see and hear consistently just so much love and grace. I'm really speaking to our society, but I think all of us become emotional about our country at times and moments. Certain stories will get us, certain triggers. I think we'll become enraged at times, and we must guard our hearts. It's okay, it's perfectly okay to say, hey, I need to speak up. I don't agree with this. There is an appropriate way. You can actually demonstrate respect and love while disagreeing. Believe it or not, it is possible. In today's America, it may seem impossible. It is possible to disagree and to push back or say, wait, that's a line. I think that's a line I need to actually give voice to this without condemning. The people who have been declared not condemnable should be the first to model what it is to interact and engage others without condemnation. The next text, three quick texts this morning. Here's the second. In John chapter 3, John 3:16, the most famous verse probably around the world. The verse that follows is powerful, and it's often ignored. John 3:17, for God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world. We're being told right here in the remarkable good news, the Gospel of John. John is saying, God didn't send Jesus into the world. The gods that you understand in history and the pagan gods and what you understand, the fiery anger of God in heaven to be, that's not God. That's not Creator God. He didn't send his Son into the world to condemn the world. He sent his Son, the more appropriate English word that we should translate here is rescue, to save the world. Sometimes it becomes a cliche to say someone is saved. It means that we understand our culture more accurately to rescue us from condemnation. He didn't come to condemn, he came to rescue us from the sin and brokenness and lesser than God that is sin that would condemn us. Arcola Community Center is a building here in the Dulles area. We have the newer Walmart and Target. It kind of sits back behind there. And I've spent time in that building years ago, and I voted in that building, actually. And then asbestos was found. It was built in 1939. It was the Arcola Elementary School. And it's been closed and plywooded up and sat just like this ghost of a building for years now, condemned. Signs hang on it. I've seen, I don't know if they're still there, but the last time I was there, you'd see signs where the building is condemned because of structural problems or just the age and asbestos. And Loudoun County Schools owns it, and I was in a meeting with Loudoun County Schools a few years back where I was asked if I was interested in the building. And I was like, well, heck yeah. And then, the restoration price tag was like $12 million or $14 million or something like that. And I was like, well, okay, wait. I heard the story that they were going to tear it down. It was condemned, not repairable, unfixable. But a lady, and I don't know her name, I can't remember her name, lives here in Loudoun County. She went to fight for the rescue of the building because it was one of the first school buildings in the United States that had more than one classroom. It was one of the prototype buildings that moved our country from single classroom schoolhouse to multiple classrooms. And the sitting president at the time actually came and cut the ribbon, President of the United States, for this building. And it has now been, because of this woman, deemed a historic landmark, and it cannot be torn down. And someone is going to repair this building and restore it because it's suddenly, we've recognized the value in the building. When others had said, well, there's no value, it must be destroyed. This is the work of John 3:17. God sent his Son. It was a mission. It's God's strategy and plan. His interaction with the world is not to announce condemnation, but to rescue us. How do the people sitting here in church gatherings all across our country today, nodding their heads, worshiping God because of John 3:17, how do we walk out of church buildings and announce condemnation on people? because of their politics or because of something they've done or because of something that's offensive. That's not a line that exists in the New Testament. Jesus could have condemned the soldiers who crucified him. He ends up praying for them. He's hanging on the cross, asking the Father to do good in the lives. I mean, this is so upside down. This is why we don't lose a lot of sleep over what's happening in our government today, because this kingdom is so different. The kingdom that Jesus brought is so radically different. All right, so here's the line this morning, and I've known in my notes, when I say this, people are going to write this down. They're going to pull their phones out, and they're just not going to be able to help themselves. They're going to find a piece of paper. We don't write things down with pen anymore. They're going to digitally capture when I say this line. Hint, 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 maybe get ready, I guess. If God did not send his son into this world to condemn it, he absolutely is not sending you into this world to condemn it. If he didn't send Jesus into this world to condemn people, he is not sending you to work or in traffic or into the greater DMV area to condemn anyone. Guaranteed. It's not his plan. One more quick verse, and then our band is going to come and close our morning here. A little further in John, here's the setup. A lot of you know this story. The religious leaders, don't miss this, the religious people, the ones who should be modeling, they're the ones who capture the woman in adultery. They catch her. And this is all a setup to test Jesus. They're using this woman in the humiliation of embarrassing her by bringing her out into the public and calling her an adulterer to see what Jesus' reaction will be. That's the whole point of this scene in John 8. And they're like, okay, Jesus, you know what the Old Testament says. You know what should be done to this woman. What say you, Jesus? She's been with various men, and we caught her this morning. And this is where Jesus says, okay, yeah. Go ahead and stone her. They're literally holding stones to stone her. But whoever of you has no sin, there's nothing condemnable about your life, you should be the first one to throw the first stone. You should cast the first stone. And Jesus is using their condemnation to expose their sin. He's such a master in every teaching moment. It's remarkable the power of God's Spirit working through him. Go ahead and stone her, but the first stone should be thrown by the one who has no sin in their life. And of course, all the stones begin to fall, drop to the ground, and these men walk away. Again, like he's done it to us again. This God of love, it's got to be stopped. And then we read this. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up. And he asks her. He hasn't had a Bible study with her. He hasn't said, hey, you should really go to church, and then after you visit church a few weeks, then let's sit down and talk. He hasn't even talked about sin yet. He's been defending her. Grace, love for this woman. He's going to get to sin, but he hasn't addressed sin yet. That's not where Jesus starts. Jesus starts with our brokenness and our hurt and our needs. That's where Jesus starts. That's where he started with you. And don't forget it when you're looking at someone who said something ugly or done something horrendous. He starts with our brokenness. It's only him standing there with this woman. Jesus straightens up and asks her, woman, where are they? Has anyone condemned you? No one, sir, she said. Then neither do I condemn you. And then the last part. People will say, yeah, Brad, you're all about love. But Jesus, he addressed her sin. Yes, he does address her sin, and he addresses my sin, and he addresses your sin. And he takes our sin seriously. And he does confront her about her sin. He declares to her, go now and leave your life of sin. He calls what's ailing her, all the broken relationships, the core of it is sin. He says life of sin. That's heavy stuff. He's not saying, hey, you made a little mistake here. He's saying your life of sin has caused so much brokenness. Leave it. There's better. There's good for you. First of all, before he gets to the life of sin, he cares for her and comes to her defense. Second, he builds trust with her, which is most easily done through love rather than selfish needs or an agenda. Having an agenda with people never works. Just love. Just love them. And then he confronts her by making it crystal clear. He confronts her sin without condemning her. Do you understand that? Does that mess with your theology? Are you questioning, wait, is that accurate? Jesus can confront my sin without condemning me? He condemned it on the cross. He's already condemned your sin. But he'll still confront you because he's rescuing you. He's trying to free you. So I'm going to ask it again. If God did not send Jesus into the world to condemn it, why would he call on you to condemn someone? You know the answer. He's not. It never crosses his mind. Yeah, but this person, Brad, immigration, they believe this about abortion and the abortion issue. Something needs to be said. You know what needs to be said? You need to declare love. You need to demonstrate, maybe for the first time this week or this month or ever in their life, what a friend looks like. You can disagree and sit down at coffee and love and tell your story. Why focus on their brokenness or the ugly thing they've done? Why not tell them you're ugly? You know how fast that builds trust? It builds trust so quickly when you say, yeah, we disagree. It's obvious. We know we disagree. Let me tell you about something that almost wrecked my marriage. Let me tell you about this super selfish moment and how God showed me his love. That wins the person across the coffee table over every single time. This is what God's Spirit is waiting for. This is what God's Spirit has called you to. This is the function of the church. The church's role is not to condemn someone. Period. It's not in the New Testament. Call to action. Our band's going to start playing here, probably behind me, which means get off the stage. Acknowledge your brokenness. May this begin now. Don't wait till later. Why wait? Acknowledge your brokenness. Acknowledge your sin to God. Tell him, God, I'm pointing and I'm yelling and I'm reading on Facebook and I get emotional, but God, the brokenness in this world starts right here with me. Acknowledge your brokenness, your sin, your ugly, and accept his no condemning love and freedom for you. And accept that as a calling in how you engage others. And then surrender to this new life, this new kind of interaction with your world. This is the way you're to interact. You're to interact with your world from this position of having been declared not condemnable. My son, my daughter. And then join us at this night of worship Wednesday night. And if that's like, oh, I've never done that before, is it going to be weird? We're going to pursue God's reality in a way that I believe 40 days from now, 40 days will end. From next Sunday, 40 days later will be Good Friday, be Easter weekend. I believe you're going to see the reality of God in your life like never before. Purchase this book, go through it with me. I'm going to be jumping on Zoom. We'll send out a link for 5 minutes every morning in the 40 days. Just to encourage you to go through part of the reading. We'll spend 5 minutes every morning at 7 a.m. Invest somehow in this 40 days and watch what God does in making you an agent of healing love. We keep waiting for Washington, D.C. to get it right. It's never going to happen. It will never happen in your lifetime. in your grandchildren's lifetime, Washington, D.C. will not get it right. But Jesus' kingdom is here, and we get to be part of it.